The seller's disclosure is not foolproof. Good morning, everybody. Today we're going to talk about the seller's disclosure and a story that you will see anytime when the market's hot, when the market's down. It's something that happens all the time. And I'm going to try and frame this. I'm not anti-broker. I'm not anti-buyer. I'm not anti-seller. I'm not anti-seller's agent. I'm not anti-anything. This is just based on some of the experience that I've seen. And I wanted to relay it to you. Now, realize this is going to be a short video, so heavy discussion is going to happen some other time. For those of you who don't know me, my name is John Schenk, and I'm the founder and managing broker of Deerwood Realty here in St. Louis, Missouri. We're a boutique brokerage. We specialize mainly in residential and some light commercial sales. And our channel is Deerwood Realty and Friends. And what we talk about on our podcast is, neighbors, bad real estating, development, things of that nature. So if that's something you'd be interested, you should definitely subscribe, and you should definitely check out our channel, Deerwood Realty STL, on YouTube. Now, today, I just want to tell you a story that could be told at any time. And the reason why it's in the news right now is because it's relevant, meaning that it's timely, it's in the mood. And the story is basically about this. A person buys a house. The house isn't what they thought it was. Okay? That's going to be the story. Now, I'm going to go to the article, and I'm going to do that right now. And then I have to hit a button because I'm getting behind myself. And just to read the headline, it says, in a hot Des Moines metro housing market, buyers wonder if sellers' agents are failing to disclose big problems. Okay? And we will just go through, we're not even going to go through the article too much, but I'm just going to do some headlights. So the people, the Smiths, they bought a house, $550,000, moved in, wall collapsed, a retaining wall in the back. It's going to cost $42,000 to $64,000 to fix it. A couple, the Felts, bought a fix and flip for, somebody bought it 5 months before for $102,000. They bought it for $195,000. There was mold rotting wood in the basement, and the foundation wall beginning to bow and crack. Okay. Both buyers use realtors and inspectors. Okay. And so you can't say, hey, well, you should have used an inspector. That would solve your problem. Or, hey, you should have used a real estate agent. That's your problem. No, they did that, and they still had problems. So I'm just going to go over things as kind of quickly as I can, and we'll talk about it. And I'm going to leave stuff out and put in the comments that, you disagree with me on this and disagree with me on that, or you agree with me on this. That's okay. I got to go fast, so I can't do it perfectly. But I'm not going to apologize for anybody. I just want to go over stuff. So one of the quotes in the article says, are people really being honest when they check those boxes? I thought everyone was supposed to act in good faith. So he's talking about the seller's disclosure. And so the first thing I would say is, no, I don't believe people act in good faith. They act in their own self-interest. And so why we give credence to the seller's disclosure as being the most perfect document is beyond me. I have no idea why. And I don't recommend you do so. So that's that. Okay? I don't believe people are acting in good faith all the time. And if there's not a problem apparent, okay, they aren't going to disclose something that they don't know anything about. Okay? So that's number one. Number two, the inspector for the Smiths noticed the bulge in the wall, and the sellers credited the buyer $2,800 for the wall. So the buyers knew about the wall, just not the severity of the wall. So what do you think about that? So let's say you buy a house and the inspector sees a leaky roof, and you go to the buyers and you say, I'm not buying this house unless you fix the leaky roof. And they say one of two things, and this is where people get things confused. They say, one, go take a hike. I'll find somebody else to buy the house. Or two, we'll fix it. Or three, actually, there's three things. Or we'll give you credit. That's it. Those are your options. So in this case, the seller's credited the wall. They're done with it. It's over. You agreed to buy the house. And that's the way it looks like from my perspective. If I were representing the sellers, it sucks for you as a buyer, but that's the way I see it. So there are constraints within a contract when you purchase a property, time constraints. And they're put there for a couple of reasons. But one of those reasons is if you could negotiate a contract for the rest of your life, it would be a terrible contract for everybody because it would always be changing. So in our contract in St. Louis, you have 10 days to inspect the property, another 10 days to agree to the repairs or or you get your money back and you move on, basically. So in that 10 days, bring your inspectors, all that you want, figure it out on the buyer side and see what's going to work. In this case, it was, we see that there's a problem, but the repair wasn't good enough. And now in the article, it talks about how they had rebuilt the wall years before. Well, is there a question on the disclosure that says, how many times did you rebuild the wall? Or is there something that you know about a landscape wall in the back? It's not obvious on the disclosure, and so that causes problems. And the disclosure, again, isn't going to catch every single thing in a property. And that's the real issue. Is we give credence to a document that isn't perfect. So the disclosure for the Felts said that the owner had never lived in the property. This is very common on a seller's disclosure. So let's say your mom passes away. Let's say your aunt passes away. Okay, you get the property. You write, I've never lived in the property, or I lived in the property 60 years ago. I have no idea what's wrong with the property. That's your disclosure. Okay, that's the way it is. Now, when you get a fix and flip, somebody can also write, sellers never lived in the property. Now, that's not good enough. They should know what's wrong with the property. So, for example, these people did put down in the disclosure there was water in the basement, and they did put down that there was some issue with the foundation. So, now as a buyer's agent, you should be looking at these things, and you should be talking about them. And even if you get an inspection, it's not a catch-all. The inspection isn't going to save you from buying a house that's terrible all the time, 100% of the time. You have to use some sort of judgment. So in this case, it's a situation where you just need to, you made a choice. It turned out to be a bad choice. That's what ends up happening. Now since this article is from Iowa, the Iowa code says all known conditions material affecting the property. And then my question would be, what happens when you as a seller don't know an issue? So let's say, for example, you have a roof that's leaked. You bring a construction person in and they fix the roof leak. You move, okay? Somebody else buys a house. You put on the disclosure, we had a roof leak, I had it repaired, okay? The roof starts leaking again. You've disclosed everything you can as a seller. The buyer may be like, what the hell? But you did what you could do as a seller. You can't disclose things that you don't know. Now, in this particular article, they say, well, the seller had the wall rebuilt, 10 years ago or 5 years ago. I don't remember. But if they thought they got it fixed the second time, what is there to disclose? And that's the issue. Is what I'm trying to tell you is this: just because it's, it could either not be on the disclosure as a question, or they could have thought they fixed the house, and this could be real. This could be genuine. And then one of the thoughts I had is that realtors, for the most part, have no idea what sellers do with their houses. So when I walk through a house, and we fill out the disclosures, unless I see something, unless they point out something to me, and it's just plainly obvious that there's an issue, I have no way to know what the sellers have done in their house for 20 years and the repairs they've made. I have to rely on them. Now, I can be held responsible if I've intentionally misled someone, or if I knew there was something wrong with the house and then I didn't say anything about it, and I didn't have the seller disclosure. And that can be an issue with getting the listing or not. And I'll just do one example. 3 years ago, there was a house that was a 1-bedroom home. Okay, there was no question it was a 1-bedroom home. The previous real estate agent had listed it as a 2-bedroom home, and it wasn't a 2-bedroom home. And I told her the seller was not a 2-bedroom home. She didn't go with me. We were ready to go, and she decided to go with someone else. And some other agent did put that it was a 2-bedroom home. And same thing with that happens in the real life with this kind of stuff. So if your roof leaks, the agent says, hey, man, your roof's leaking. You need to put that in the disclosure. That's a cause to be dismissed, a cause to be fired and let go. So it's not as, I mean, it's easy for my conscience to do these things, but it's not easy for other people. You know, the world, the world just doesn't work the way we read it to work sometimes. And so just keep that in mind. So here's some thoughts I had that might be helpful and things for you to think about when you're going through this process. And one of them is please be skeptical of the seller's disclosures. It's not that people are trying to fool you. It's not that there's anything amiss. It's that you really have situations at times where you don't know that there's something wrong with a property, and you can't disclose something that you don't know. It's absolutely impossible. Also, if people, you can see a good disclosure online, okay, but they may miss something, and I guarantee you it's not intentional, and so unless it is intentional, I'm sorry, but just be skeptical. There's no reason to believe that disclosure is perfect, okay, and then also be skeptical of repairs performed. So in this instance, this wall had been repaired previous, okay, it had fallen down. They had it repaired, okay. There may or may not be something on the disclosure about retaining walls. Don't give credit to sellers who get repair contractors to fix things when you could even have issues yourself. So what if you used the same people to build the wall and the wall fell down? It doesn't mean that you're right and the seller's wrong. You both end up with a wall that fell down. So you have to be skeptical of repairs that are performed. Always be skeptical. So oftentimes I will take it as a buyer's agent, I would rather take a credit and have my sellers have the money so that they can repair the property the way they need to repair it versus asking for the seller to repair things, because the sellers for the most part just want to get out of the house. So that's another thing. So another thing, number 3, is fix and flips are flat out dangerous. Okay. You don't have to, I can't tell you the number of people that I've met that have called me and showed me a house and said this, I said, why did you buy it? Well, this is, this was an investor and they sold it to me. And it's just terrible. And so I don't want to demonize people that invest in properties or anything like that. I think that's, a good thing to do and helpful to the economy overall. But as a real estate agent, I should always, keep my eyebrow up a little bit when it's a fix and flip. And the reason why is people can have the work. There's a reason why the property was terrible in the first place. Okay. So let's say it's a leaky basement, a foundation issue. Okay. So now you come in and you bring in your experts and you fix the foundation. Okay. And then you put in the pretty colors of the house and make everything look nice, and somebody buys it for, twice what they should. Now, we have no idea if this particular repair is going to work, and that's where I have the issue. We have no idea what was wrong with the house. And then all of a sudden we make the repairs that we think are right, and then they turn out to be terrible. So what I like to do on a fix and flip is, first of all, I like to avoid them. And second of all, if I do buy a fix and flip, it's really nice to buy it after the first person that bought it took all the situations that happened and got them fixed. So in this case, I was really surprised when the couple bought the fix and flip, and it's like nobody told them that it was a fix and flip. Like they didn't look at the tax records previous or stuff like that, or they thought it was okay to buy a fix and flip. That's something just to be paying attention to. Also, realize that some things will happen when you buy a home. You and your inspector may not see something, and the sellers may never have known there was an issue. This isn't something that can be disclosed. So, as an example, assume there's a light switch in the attic that controls the kitchen. The owners didn't even know it was up there. The inspector missed it, and all of a sudden the light switch breaks. It wasn't something that could have been disclosed because nobody knew about it, but it is a problem. And just realize that during your home ownership, there's going to be issues, and that's part of the joys of owning a home. Another thing is, as a buyer, consider reasons to walk from a property versus reasons to buy. So if something seems off on a house, it doesn't matter if there's 4 other offers on it. Why do you need to be the person that runs into that brick wall? Go ahead and just move on. There's always going to be another house, and this is the case in any market. So the premise of this article is that because things are very, very busy, sellers and sellers agents are taking a shortcut, and the buyers are the ones responsible for that. No, this happens all the time. It's got nothing to do with the market. And to be honest, if it's in a buyer's market, the buyers beat the hell out of the sellers, and nobody says a word about that. Unless, of course, something goes wrong with the property. And that's what's so funny about, 2007, we watched so many people buy houses that were terrible from the bank, and the bank had nothing, they had nothing in the property. They couldn't disclose what they didn't know. So just keep that in mind. And then another thing is, buying a house with a known issue and then thinking that you're going to sue for remedy is a bad strategy, okay? You're better off just buying a house that doesn't have issues, and you don't have to sue, and you don't have to go through litigation, and you don't have to deal with any of that stuff. So if it seems off, don't just assume, well, we'll just sue the sellers if something's wrong. No, just find a different house. It's a lot easier for you. It's going to cost less money, and it's a lot. There's always going to be another house, okay? Another thing is, these types of problems arise when buyers and sellers come into contact with a very sophisticated and regulated industry, and that is real estate sales. They use their experience in other aspects of their life, and it just doesn't relate. And as an example, say you have a structural engineer. They're very seldom ever going to buy in real life. They're very seldom ever going to buy a house that has structural issues. Okay, it's not going to happen. But and if it does happen, it's because they're going to fix the house up and make it right, and it's going to work out great. On the other hand, say a school teacher sees that there's a foundation problem in a disclosure, they're not going to know the severity of the issues or what could be the worst possible scenario. They have no idea. They're not in the industry. They don't know the market, and they're going to get hit. And so that's something to pay attention to. Is just because something works in a different industry, something that you're familiar with, doesn't mean it translates over to real estate. Another thing is, real estate agents are not experts in construction, mold, or anything else. They're working as an agent to help buy or help sell a home. And so that's true. I personally use my experience over time. I've been in construction. I've been in some other places where, I understand housing pretty well. But I don't use that as the basis for helping people buy and sell houses. I use my experience in real estate over the years and see bad transactions happen. So for instance, if we go to a house and there's a disclosure and it says there's some water in the basement, and the people have carpet, and the carpet smells like mildew, that's for me a reason, I don't want to be in the house. I don't want to buy the house. Inspectors are never going to be allowed in a basement to open the walls and check, break through the drywall and check the cracks that could be in the basement. It's just not going to happen. And so we have to use what we know or what our experience. And so my experience is, if something smells moldy and terrible in the basement, and on the disclosure it says that there's a small leak, that means it's probably a terrible leak, and I want to have nothing to do with it. That's just the way I roll now. Some people might think differently, and it's totally okay with them. But let's say that there's mold in a basement. There's 1,000 different kinds of molds. The seller's agent isn't going to know what kind of mold it is. The buyer's agent isn't going to know what kind of mold it is. All they're going to know is that it's mold. Some mold is apparently bad. Some mold is apparently good. I don't know anything more than that. So I can't put that it's black mold if I don't know that it's black mold. There's a limit to what we can say, and we can't vouch for things that we don't have any expertise in. Another thing is people get sucked in by pictures online. It can cost dearly. And so just so you know, a fix and flip is going to have the right paint, the right colors, the right appliances. Everything's going to be perfect, okay? The right flooring, and it's going to look perfect. But there's a reason why that house ended up being a fix and flip. It could have terrible structural issues that the flipper fixed, but at the same time, it wasn't the right repair. And no one's going to know about that until you move in. And that's when the problems arise. So just understand that, when you see these beautiful, gorgeous pictures of a fix and flip, or just by the pictures online, and then when you go to the house and you see, pretty walls, pretty paint, it might be hiding something, okay? And then finally, this is where real estate agents get bad reputations. And this is where I don't know what we can do as an industry, and I don't know what we can do just in general. I don't think litigation is the answer, because I don't think you can litigate these types of issues when you honestly don't know something wrong with a house, and you put it on there, or the questions on the disclosure aren't precise enough to get the answer that you need, or people have honestly acted in good faith on the selling side and gotten a repair done, and the repair didn't work out. I don't know how you can help buyers at the same time. How do you help a buyer that that when you see on a disclosure that the wall is crumbling in the basement and the buyer says, I want to buy the house, how do you solve that problem? There's no way to solve it. So it's not, I'm going to wrap things up. It is not about a hot seller's market, okay? This is something that's going to go on forever because we all have different value systems. We all bring different things to the table. And at the end of the day, you just have to understand that buying a house can be dicey. And that's why you want to rely on experts. You want to rely on a good, seasoned real estate agent. You want to rely on, an inspector may miss things, but if they get 90% of the things, hey, that's better than nothing. And just remember at the end of the day that you don't have to buy a house that is iffy. There's always another house, okay? So that's what I have for you today. I hope this was informative, and I can see how you may think I'm being pro-seller or pro-buyer in this, but I represent both. I'm not just a specialist in listing. I'm not just a specialist in buyers. So I know what happens in the marketplace, and that's just the way I look at it. So if you ever have any issues that you want to discuss, if you want to discuss, neighbors are crazy, HOA's crazy, anything, send me an email, media@deerwoodrealtystl.com, or give me a call at 314-274-3964, and leave a message, and we might put your story on the air, and we'll go over it. So that's all I have today. And remember, this is not the most expert, perfect presentation on the seller's disclosure. This is my quick opinion on these things that may help when you're looking to buy a house. And if you're a seller, things to avoid, let's not hide things on the disclosure if we know about them. That's where I'm at. So that's what I have. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and I will catch you on the next one.